Hey guys, welcome back to another online lesson. Today we're going to divide decimals by decimals. First, let's get the steps down. If we're going to divide 6 and 85 hundredths by 5 tenths, here are the steps. First, set up the division problem. So let's do it. Remember, we cross decimal point 5 on the outside and 6 decimal point 85 on the inside. Okay, next, move the blank to the right on both until you are dividing by a whole number. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the decimal. And here's what I mean to move it to the right. Notice here, decimal is on the left-hand side of the 5. We're going to move it once over so that it goes there. Now we're dividing by a whole number, which the whole number is 5. Now if you moved it one time here, you also have to move it one time here. Okay? So now we have a new setup. It is 5 on the outside and 6, 8.5 on the inside. Just remember, however many times you move it here is how many times you move it here. Perfect. Next, we're going to bring up the blank to the quotient. We're going to bring up the decimal. Okay, so the new decimal is here. We just move it straight up to here. Last step, divide. Okay, so now we just divide as normal. 5 goes into 6 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. Subtract and we are at 1. Check, we're good. Drop that 8. How many times does 5 go into 18? Best is 3. 15. Subtract, and we are at 3. Okay, now we're at the decimal. We've already moved it up, so just kind of ignore it. We don't have to drop the decimal down at all. We move the decimal up. So now, last step, how many times does 5 go into 35? And of course, it's 7 times. 7 times 5 is 35. Subtract, and we are at 0. Nothing left to bring down. We are at 0. Good. So my answer is 13 and 7 tenths. Okay, just follow these steps, and we'll do a few examples, and I'll have you do a few. Okay. Here's one that could be a little bit tricky because many times when we're dividing decimals by decimals, we're going to have to annex some zeros. So, let me get rid of that. Okay. Hint. There are times you may have to annex zeros. So let's look at this one for example. We are going to find 11 and 2 tenths divided by 7 hundredths. So let's set it up normal. 11 decimal point 2 goes on the inside, and 0 decimal point 07 on the outside. Okay, if you remember our steps before, we have to make it so that we're dividing by a whole number. So in that case, we have to move the decimal all the way from the left to the right. Just be sure to count how many times you do it. So let's do it. We move it once, twice. Now we're at 7. If we move it twice on the outside, we have to move it twice on the inside. Once, twice. We don't have a spot there. That's where we have to annex a 0. So let's do it. Okay, now I'm going to rewrite the problem. We have 7, notice because we moved the decimal, on the outside, and then we moved it twice here, so it's 1,120. Notice just with the decimal place here. Perfect. Now I'm going to erase our original problem just so I have some room to work. And the next step is I bring up the decimal. Okay, now let's divide as normal. 7 can't go into 1, but it can go into 11 one time, so that is 7. Subtract. 11 minus 7 is 4. Check. It's lower. We're good. Bring it down. 42. How many times does 7 go into 42? 6 times. 6 times 7 is 42. Subtract, we are at 0. Check, it's lower, we're good. Bring down the 0. How many times does 7 go into 0? It doesn't. 0 times 7, we are at all zeros. Subtracting, we are good to go. We could stop there and notice 160 decimal point, that's just 160. So therefore 11.2 divided by 0.07 equals 160. Okay, key is, remember, move the decimals the same amount of times on each side. Let's try another one. Okay. This one here, I'm going to circle. I want you to try that one on your own, all right? This one here, it looks a lot confusing, right? There's a ton of zeros, a ton of decimal places. I'm going to do this one, and I want you to try that one, okay? So let's look at this one here. First off, I want to set it up. Remember, 7 on the outside, and the 63 will go on the inside. So I put 0, 0, 6, 3. And notice I just left off that whole 0 because I know that there's no whole number there, so I just left it off. And I'll do the same here. Decimal point 0, 0, 7. Okay. I just left off the whole numbers just to make it a little bit shorter. But again, it's a 0, so there really were no whole numbers. Okay, first thing we got to do, move the decimal to the right 1, 2, 3 times. And if we move it 3 times there, we have to move it 1, 2, 3 times there. So now my new decimal place is there. Let's rewrite the problem so we could see it, and I'll actually rewrite it up here. 7 on the outside and 6 decimal point 3 on the inside. Perfect. Bring the decimal right up. Okay, so now what we're saying is how many times does 7 go into 6 decimal point 3 or 63? Ignore the decimal. 7 goes into 63 9 times. 9 times 7 is 63. We subtract, and we are at 0. Nothing left to bring down. We are good to go, so therefore we know this one equals 9/10. Okay? At this point, you might want to pause the video. Try that one on your own. All right, one more set to do here. Okay, here are 2 additional problems. What I want you to do is I want you to choose one of the 2 to try. Do you want to try this one, or do you want to try this one? Okay, we're going to start class by going over both of them, but I want you to be sure to try one of the 2. Now, if you're really feeling daring, try them both. Okay, but my expectation is that one of them should be done. We'll see you in class.